Hello everyone, it is Ouroboros Zero, and I'm here to talk about the next update now that the PTS 2 is live today. I already went in there and looked at everything I needed to see. It didn't take that long. I'll be talking over about strikers and other items. So I will be explaining to you how to build them, what you expect from the next update from the pieces, and just about stuff like that. Also, some of you might not know, I created a Discord. You could join it. The link will be in the description. If you have any questions about the builds, how to build them, or yada yada, that's what I'll be discussing mostly in the Discord. And if you guys have any build questions, you can ask it there. I know some of you have questions in the YouTube comments, but refer to my Discord so I can respond more promptly. But without any further ado, let's talk about strikers. So there's gonna be a couple ways to build strikers for PvP and then PvE. So striker will have the same pieces, 2, 3 piece buff, but the 4 piece is gonna change dramatically, right? So currently the striker's gamble, it amplifies your weapon damage by zero point 0.5 up to 50 stacks, and then you lose 2 stacks every second. They are buffing it to 0.65, which is how much the backpack gives you currently, but they are buffing it, so the standard is gonna be 0.65, and with the backpack you get a whole 1%. Now that's gonna be very good because you still get the same amount of stacks. Well, the stacks increase to 100, actually. So it's gonna be it's gonna be 100 stacks instead of 50 at 1% with the backpack, which is all you need for PvP. Trust me, I know the chest plate's gonna look very appetizing because with the chest plate, it's gonna increase it from 100 to 200. But you gotta realize it, you're still losing stacks at a much faster rate. It's gonna be 5 stacks and 6 stacks every second at 100 to 150 and 150 to 200. You're gonna lose a lot of stacks, like 4 to 5 each second. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot to keep up with, especially when PvP. You're not just shooting, you're running around, you're dodging. That's already like 20 stacks right here, just gone. But in PvP, you're gonna have to do like 5 clips, and that's if you hit all the clips of ammo into somebody to get what you need. It's a lot. You can see right there, it took me like 2 clips to get to 100, which makes sense because I hit all the shots. But with somebody actually moving, it's not gonna be that easy. So I would recommend building it like this. If you want to run it with Spotter and Kingbreaker, this is one viable option. But you'll be a backliner. So you could run it like this, or you could run it with an SMG, which I probably will prefer running it with an SMG. Here you go, SMG here, and you could use the Picaro's holster instead, which I don't have at the moment, but we could simulate it by using a Walker Harris. So now with this, you could run it with the Lady Death and a Vector, or however you would want to run it. Let's see, I am over crit at the moment. Silver crit. You need a lot of crit chance with this gear set for using a assault rifle. That's why I recommend using an SMG with this gear set. It's more of an SMG gear set to begin with. Perfect. So with an SMG, I have basically 130 crit hit damage and max crit. With the Vector, I have max crit. This is how it's gonna look like. I'm losing 1.9, but it's not much. You should have 1.4 million with this gear set. I just don't have anything optimized for it because I never really used strikers in that way. Until this update, I'm probably gonna use it. Now you want to use a Vector for strikers. The striker is very good, but you want to get those stacks fast. So the fastest would be a Vector. As you can see right there, I'm already at max of 50. It takes 2 clips with a Vector to get to max. And then you can switch to Lady Death and start hitting a lot. As you can see, I'm hitting for 550, 541 with max stacks basically. Data is very good, but you can always use a vector, right? For instance, let me get back to max. There's a lot of damage from a vector. It'll be more damage when you actually have max. You can also use it with flatline instead of in sync if you use it with engineer. But you always gotta remember your team buffs matter, right? Your team buffs matter, so you might want to be a firewall instead of a demolitionist. Because I'm telling you, team buffs matter in this game, especially in the next update. But this is how I would recommend running a strikers for PvP, right? So demolitionist, a firewall with the SMG instead of this, because this is the Kingbreaker version with a technician. Now for PvE, I would recommend using the chest plate because in PvE you get to shoot, you know, the NPCs a lot more. You know, it's a lot easier to do this, and I wouldn't recommend using the late death. I would recommend using like a SIG MPX. You know, with max stacks with a SIG MPX. About 530. That's pretty high, especially when you actually have all red like you're supposed to. You know, red Solikov somewhere around here, or coyotes. We'll put coyotes on for now. Let's get back to max stacks. 620. 620 is pretty good. And I'm currently at like half of what I really should be with the new update. Because remember, it gets to a whole 1% and then 300, or I mean 200 with this. You're gonna be hitting for a lot in PvE. This is be a very nice DPS PvE build. But let's talk about the new gear set that's coming out. So the new gear set, the Umbra Initiative. It sounds like Future Initiative, but it will be called Umbra Initiative. I talked about it in the previous video, but they buffed it a little bit. So the previous video is still valid, but now the backpack for it, which I don't have because this is not the PTS, it gives you 0.8 regen. So if you use the backpack, it will get you to 80%. So after you stay out into the light in combat for 5 seconds, and then you get hit and you almost get broken, you get into cover. So after you get broken, you get into cover and you hero to 80%. So you will be around here. Well, a little bit higher than this, but and you just have to stay in cover for like 5 seconds. Very nice. They buffed it into a reasonable amount. If you don't use the backpack, it'll be 40% of your armor, which is a lot less, but it's nice. It's a nice amount. But they buffed the chest plate as well. Well, not the chest plate, but the gear set itself. So they had the buff out of the shadows into the light. You know, it gives you extra fire rate and extra crit hit damage. If you want to know all about it, I explained it a lot in the previous videos. I'll be, well, not the previous video, but one of my other videos when I talked about the update. It will give you 0.3 fire rate up to a stack of 50, but then with the chest plate up to a stack of 100. And it decays, now it decays at a -2 stacks a second when walking around, and -1 while sprinting. So this buff lasts a long time now. It has double the lifespan. And that will let you dump a bunch of damage into somebody. A lot of damage. You could use it with a high rate of fire gun, but what I recommend using it with is slow rate of fire guns. Like a Keenbreaker, but I have my TBK here ready for it. Or an AKM, an M1A, you know, any slow rate fire shotguns. That's what you want to use it for. See, with this, So I only have 15% extra fire rate because of the strikers 3-piece. But you could imagine it being way higher than this. And this is just the single fire mode from the Bighorn. So items with slow rate of fire will do a lot better. So I recommend using you guys picking up an AKM or some sort of slow rate of fire SMG like the T821, you know. But you could also use it with fire fast ones like this. But the slow ones are gonna hit a lot harder and a lot faster. Let me show you with a TBK. It's gonna be shooting as fast as the Bighorn, or yeah, it'll be basically shooting as fast as the Bighorn. Not the Bighorn right now because of that. But you see, with just 15%, I'm at 750. But you get a lot more with the gear set, and it's gonna be very powerful. I recommend you starting to get your guns now before the update comes, but you know you can always play catch up. So how I recommend using it is I would use the chest plate because the chest plate is absolutely mandatory for this gear set. It's not mandatory, but if you actually want to use it for PvP, I would recommend using the chest plate. And let's see. You could use the backpack. You don't have to, but the backpack's pretty nice. It's now viable in PvP. I would definitely recommend using the glove and the knee pads. So that gives you 4 slots, right? So you have 1, 2, 3. This will be your fourth, or it could be your mask or your holster. It depends on what you want. Because if you're running with an SMG, you could use a mask. If you're running with an AR, then you need to use the holster. I mean, well, like the Coyote's mask. So if you're running with SMG, you would want to run it with the Coyote's mask. If you're running with AR, you'll want to use the Umber Initiative mask. Because you want to use either the Prowess holster or a your assault rifle, Fenris, or Solikov. So that's how you're gonna want to do it, right? So imagine this, right? So this would be the SMG version of it. Here we go, SMG version. Bam. I need to guess that one. Bam. And like let's say Walker. This will be Solikov or whatever you want. So this will be the SMG version. You know, here's your 4 pieces of the Umber Initiative, your mask, and your backpack. Now for an assault rifle, it will look like this instead. Bam. Prowess holster or Fenris. And bam. This will be how Umber Initiative will look like. I recommend using more blue with the gear set than red. Yeah, why I say this is because you get a lot of extra fire rate with the guns. So you at least want to do 3 and 3, but you could do more blue. You will absolutely be melting people. See, the problem with the gear sets, right? A lot of them don't give you any sort of damage besides like Hunter's Fury here, but this gives you fire rate, and then at 4-piece it gives you the damage, right? Or the new gear set is giving you 100 crit hit damage, right? So say you put crit hit damage on most of this, you know, here's 6 pieces, right? So 6 with all crit hit damage will be the equivalent of 72 crit hit damage. With the gear set, you're getting 100, so that's an extra 28 crit hit damage that you wouldn't have if you had max stacks, which wouldn't take too long. That or 80 if you do it for 4 seconds instead of 5. Very powerful, especially with the extra fire rate. So it will beat strikers at the initial stacks. So before strikers have max stats in the new update, it's gonna beat it. So I recommend using this. But if you spawn outside the checkpoint door and you just spawn out like that, this is not the gear set for that. The new gear set, the Umber Initiative, is not for coming out the checkpoint and getting killed. No, it had to be the other side where you're at the checkpoint and you're shooting the people coming out. That's what this gives it's for. You know, you're waiting, somebody comes out, boom, max fire rate, max damage. That's what it's meant for. The region is nice. You could use it with the backpack. It's up to you, right? Instead of popping a med kit, right? Let's say I get damage to this. I get into cover. It takes about as long as a med kit to get to max. So it just saves you med kits, and you can still use the firewall med kit, right? Like I told you, the firewall, and just pop it out of cover, get into cover, get out of cover, just like that. It's gonna be strange movements at first. It's gonna take you some time to adapt to its strange way playstyle, but it's gonna be a fun playstyle. Now, the new gun stage left and lefty and stuff like that, they're gonna be very powerful. They didn't change much since the last thing, so I'm gonna briefly touch upon them. But they changed it from the ACS 12 to a mop because the damage level was too high. But the sledgehammer talents are still gonna be some of the best in slot talents for having for your secondary for Dell camping or NPC camping, you know. But that's pretty much all I wanted to touch upon. The last thing I want to touch upon is the ongoing directive. So currently, it gives amplified damage of 20% to people hit with the bleed. Well, people you shoot after killing a status affected target. What they're gonna do is make it a team buff, where your teammates get half a clip of the hollow point mags. And I believe with the chest plate or the backpack, it it amplifies it from 20% to 35%. That's gonna be a very good one. It's gonna be tough to pull off in PvP, but if you kill somebody with status effects like Witcher's Pride chest plate, you know, you bleed them and you kill them, your teammates are gonna start winning the fight with the extra damage from the hollow point. But it's gonna be a very tough gear set to pull off. It's gonna be very nice in PvE though. In PvE, this is definitely gonna be a good brand set, 100%. Alright, let's touch upon the Picard's holster. So this is not the Picard's holster, but they nerfed the holster, which is pretty much very needed. And the holster, instead of having a core attribute, it has a perfected core attribute of red. So instead of being the 15% max that you get here, it's going to be 20%. Now that is a very good holster. Some of you might be like, why would I use this as a walker? Because you could use that holster and still get the extra 10% skill haste from the holster brand set. Instead of getting the extra 5% weapon damage from walker, you just put this holster in instead as a replacement, and you get extra damage. And some skill haste, it's a small amount, but it's small enough that I would move around pieces in my build to use it. But that also means instead of running two pieces of walker for that 5% damage to armor, which is good in PvP, but in PvE, a lot of the drone targets and the red targets, they don't have any armor. So you could swap out an extra walker for the holster and still get the extra damage to those NPCs that don't have armor, like the dogs and the it's just here. For instance, let me show you. So for a red target, I'm doing 264. For a blue target, I'm doing 229. You see how I'm hitting harder for this one? That's for two reasons. My damage to health on the AR, and because that's pretty much it. Just the AR. Even though I have damage to armor here, I'm losing out in damage because I have more health damage. A better example would be if I used a rifle. Right, so 423 non-crit, 444. I'm getting that extra 20,000 by using this. But I lose out on it on the red targets because it's only damage to armor, which only the elite has. So you could just swap out the holster and get actually low damage in PvE. It's those small differences that make you melt the legendaries much faster. It's just small differences like that. You can still roll 2 regular attributes onto the Picard's holster, so nothing really changes. It'll be a much easier piece to acquire because it's a perfected one, and so you just need 1 red on it, and then just roll the other blue or yellow you get on it. It'll be a very easy holster to use and acquire. That pretty much touches all about the next update. The Picard's holster is basically still the best in slot that's going to come out. Some of you might say, well, why would I use the Picard's holster when I could use the Fenris holster instead and get the extra 10% damage, so it equals 25 in total? I understand what you're saying, but instead of doing it like that, I do this. I put the holster somewhere, I put the Fenris piece somewhere else, and instead of putting a walker down here, I would put the Picard's holster, which I'm using it in place of the ammo dump right here. But this will be the Picard's holster instead. So I get the extra 5% damage that the walker will give me instead. And I still get the extra 10% skill haste. So you just put items like the Fenris above or on the gloves or on the backpack or, you know, another place on the chest plate. You know, on the chest plate, and then the Picard's holster down here.
You have received an invite to another agent's group.
And you still use your foxes, your contractors. So it would look something like this, right? You got your Fenris, or you got 1 piece of walker, because the 5% weapon damage is still good. Then you got your Grupo here, or whatever. And then it would look like this. You know, this would be the Picard's holster, this would be your Fenris, this would be walker, just like that. Very simple. It's still going to be one of the best in slots, but it's going to be very replaceable. Now they changed the pistol. The pistol, Busy Little B, is now better than what it used to be. So you could use it for PvP too. It's gonna be tough to use, right? So first of all, you still need to shoot somebody, right? So say you know it's gonna take some work to get used to, but what you would do is you will come around the corner and you see a bunch of rogues or manhunts. You shoot 1, you shoot 2, you shoot 3. You're not gonna kill them anyways if you're by yourself, or if you're by, you know, if you're just shooting it from long range like this. It's very unlikely that you kill someone. You know, they're gonna go into cover. But if you get 3 stacks, you know, you shoot 1, you shoot 2, you shoot 3, you know, then you still get the buff, right? That's 30% weapon damage if you shoot 3, or shoot 2, 20%. And then when they actually push you guys, you get that extra 20% weapon damage to lay onto them. It's a small difference, but for tank builds, that's a big difference, right? So for instance, if I put my metal build on right here, I only have 1 red, but if I use the pistol with it and get 2 hits or 3 hits, if I get 3 hits, I basically an extra 2 reds. You know, I got that 15% here, you know, 15% here, and then I start laying onto them. It's gonna be tough, right? So now you're seeing the picture, right? So basically, to simulate 30 damage, right? I'm hitting for 281 right now. 281, because instinct gives me 30% weapon damage. If I didn't have it, I would be hitting for, give me 1 second, 242. So that's an extra 40,000 damage that I'm missing out on. Now with the pistol buff, if I hit 3 of them, 3 of those rogues, I would hit for 320 instead. So 224 to 281, and then from 281 to 320. That's how it will be. That's a big damage buff. Of course, in PvP, it's different damage, right? You got your PvP stats here, right? Your weapon damage normally for PvE, and then your PvP damage. But it's still gonna be roughly like that. It's just smaller increments. Now the pistol is gonna be very good. I recommend using it. The TDI custom is good for skill builds, but the new PvP pistol will be the busy little bee. Even if you just shoot one of them, right? You shoot one of them, you still get extra 10% damage for 10 seconds. I'm gonna go from 242 to like 250, 260, around there. It's just a nice little damage buff, right? It causes you no harm to just peek around the corner, shoot them, switch guns, and then actually fight them. It's gonna be a different type of play style to get used to. But that's the highlights I want to talk about. The stage left and the lefty, I'm sure you heard about them. There's not much to talk about them. This is gonna be very good for using grenades and stuff. They're gonna be definitely both good in PvP and PvE, but there's not much to say about them besides just throw a grenade and shoot somebody. That's as simple as it gets. If you want to know more about it, check my other video. I explain details about how to use it. They'll be good, but there's always other options because throwing a grenade is very hard. Besides using a fire grenade, which I talked about in the other video, so check that out. But that's all I have to say. Join my Discord if you have any more questions, and have fun out there.